Dandavat pranams to all of our dear friends and family. So we're continuing with our Shri īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā challenge. We've reached verse number 5, and I'm also very excited to tell you that there are going to be prizes. So please don't give up, keep going. And the prize will be a free copy of īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā or another book of your choice. We can discuss the terms fully later. So I'm really happy, really excited. Today we have special guest speaker, our Pandit Guru, who's a wonderful speaker and also has a wonderful Vaishnava heart. So I'd love to hear something from you, Gadadhar Guru, on the 5th verse of īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā, and maybe afterwards I'll follow up with a few more thoughts. Wait, let me just give you the mic here. Put that on yourself. Okay, so, verse number 5. Gadadhar will chant it for us.
Verse number 5 is kṛṣṇeti yasya giri manasādriyeta dīkṣāsti chet praṇatibhiś bhajantam īśam śuśrūṣayā bhajana-vijñam ananyam nindādi-śūnya-hṛdam īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā. And do you want me to basically say the translation?
Yeah, as it flows.
Okay.
Yeah, however it flows.
All right. So the basic gist of that verse is that there are gradations of Vaishnavas, and the verse is instructing a practitioner on how to offer respect appropriate to a Vaishnava at a particular level of spiritual development. And the first part of the verse says that one should offer respect in one's mind to someone who is chanting the holy name, has appreciation for the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and is thus entered the world of, the beautiful world of spiritual practice, and that should be acknowledged by other Vaishnavas. In their mind, they should offer respect to that. Manasādriyeta, manasa means in the mind, so they should give them happy and respectful thoughts concerning that person. And then, if someone has taken it a step further, their faith has progressed and they've decided to make a formal commitment into the path of bhakti, then they take dīkṣā initiation. dīkṣāsti chet, praṇatibhiś, bhajantam īśam. Praṇatibhiś means you should offer more formal respects, and that should take shape in physical expression. So it's traditional for devotees to offer pranams, or call them obeisances, bowing down to each other, as a sign of more developed respect. So as the sadhana develops and a person's spiritual advancement, the ādriyeta, they grow spiritually, so appropriate levels of respect are shown to match that development. And then the highest level of Vaishnava, naturally, following this progression, is showing the highest level of respect. And a key word or a key phrase is used here when defining this highest Vaishnava, and that is nindādi-śūnya. Nindādi-śūnya. We could even say nindādi-śūnya-hṛdam. So ninda means emotions that are or feelings towards other people, or emotions and desires that are of a very critical and harsh, we may say jealous nature, that can cause certain amounts of problems, spiritually speaking, or that represent some deficiency in one's heart. So Shunya means zero. Shunya means nothingness. It's emptiness. We have Shunyavad, for instance, which represents a doctrine of nothingness, ultimately. So nindādi-śūnya means that the person doesn't have any bad thoughts or bad feelings, particularly towards other people, and we may say even particularly towards other devotees. It's very important to not have that, any kind of jealousy or envy. Nindādi-śūnya-hṛdam, there's nothing of that in their heart. Their heart, in other words, we can say their heart and their consciousness has been purified. And those people should be offered the utmost respect. But the verse, and this is another crucial element of the verse, it says that not just should they be offered respect, but Saṅga-labdhyā, the final two words in the verse, is that we should be greedy for the company and the association of such people who fit the criteria previously described, whose hearts are pure, the topmost devotees. And that is not only the epitome of showing respect, where you are greedy, lolyam or labdhyā, to associate with these people, associate and serve with these topmost Vaishnavas. But it's also the highest and most powerful form of spiritual transformation. It puts one in a circumstance which is potentially the most powerful and dramatic form of spiritual transformation. So the verse is hinting at not only what you should do practically to show respect to various gradations of Vaishnava, but also suggesting that this is the perfection of your interactions with Vaishnavas. If you want to know how to deal or where to go in terms of a Vaishnava Sangha, then find the people that have pure hearts and be greedy, be hungry, be even a little bit ruthless perhaps for their association. And the verse is, well, it may remind us of the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Hai, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha. Sarva Shastra Kai, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hai. So that refers to Sadhu Sangha of the type, with the type of devotee identified in this fifth verse of Upadeshamrita. Hṛdam, nindādi-śūnya-hṛdam. So we can infer that if we find and capitalize on this, which is essentially advice, it's a guide and it's an advice of Rupa Goswami, we're able to materialize this kind of actualize this association in our lives, then what can happen? Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Kai. So all the scriptures say that Sadhu Sangha of this premium type, Lava Matra means a split second, and we'll get to the relevance of that in a second. Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hai. Sarva Siddhi means all perfection, all the good things that you're looking for as a devotee. They can come through just a split second of contact, of association, Sangha, with a sadhu, with this topmost sadhu. That is how powerful it is. And I like to think of electricity. Just a split second of contact with electricity can have a powerful, of course this is a negative example because the impact of electricity is deadly in this regard, but just a short contact with an electrical current of a high enough voltage and your life is ended. Your physical life is over just like that, very quickly. So just a split second of proper quality contact with this kind of high Vaishnava is able to eliminate all of your anarthas and give you all perfection. That is the power of contact with, it's the power of the spiritual electricity that is coming down through these perfect devotees, through these high devotees. And we may see this as the import of the verse, as a guide to not only how to show respect towards a Kanishta Adhikari devotee, and then the more expressive, physical expression of one's respect towards a madhyam, but then to be absolutely greedy for the service of the topmost devotee because of how valuable it is. And it's so valuable that even a brief contact, or a proper quality contact with the topmost devotee can be a game changer in terms of our spiritual lives, in terms of
Spiritual
give
game
everything in a
changer.
second.
Nice, very nice.
You're not in the frame yet.
Oh, shall I add a few more words?
Yes, sure, yeah.
Was that your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'll take the bill.
Oh,
Like,
yes,
yeah. That was awesome, brother. That's a great expression. It's a spiritual game changer. Remember that. Yeah. So wonderful explanation from Gadadhar Prabhu. And a few other things that come to mind. One is that, this idea of kind of making some healthy discrimination as to different levels of Vaishnavas, it can be, that idea is a little offensive to some, who kind of are more comfortable with a more egalitarian view, right? Or at least this idea of treating everyone equally or giving everyone equal honor. It's an idea that doesn't sit so comfortably with people because it, especially because we live in this world of exploitation, and so there's like hierarchy, prejudice. These things are all kind of related with the idea of like ranking people, right? So it can be a little bit of a sensitive topic. So maybe I'll just elaborate a little on that. Why this is important and why it's not something to totally dismiss. Yes, in a general sense, we want to give honor to all. And our Gurudev, and I believe it's our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj's special, I think it's something that was unique from our Gurudev. One of the ways in which he translated was Amanina Manadena in the Trinada P verse, more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Amanina Manadena, one way he translated this was that even to persons who are not worthy of honor, we will give them honor, right? That was something we heard our Gurudev say many times, And so then how do we harmonize these things, right? How do we harmonize that, So, okay, first of all, honor is something, respect, appreciation, affection also. These are things that can be expressed in different ways, right? And our general dealings with persons, the way we look at people, the way we speak to them, the way we exchange with them or assist them, the way we're attentive, we can express respect in these ways. But what's being referred to here is more formal type of respect, and also in terms of how much we are investing specific faith in people. And so one reason why it may not be helpful to overly give respect to someone who's very new, let's say someone who we, as far as to the best of our understanding, is of a beginner level, let's say beginner level Vaishnava. One reason why it's not helpful to give them so much overt respect is because they're in a very early stage. They don't have so much of a reference. And if you overemphasize their position, then it can be confusing for them, right? They have a lot of lessons to learn, and they're still in the early stages of developing their understanding, and it can be confusing and bewildering and give them a bit of a mixed up idea as to what this is. So we can show honor, respect, affection, attention to them in more general ways, right? So that is one point on the side of the person who's the recipient of honor. It may not be so it's helpful for them. It's like if a school teacher or a mother or parent is trying to instruct their child, it won't be helpful if they mollycoddle the child. We hear about this these super nannies, right? Maybe I was even discussing it with you a few years ago, because now it's kind of like a modern phenomenon, and maybe a part of the PC movement, where it's many parents are afraid nowadays to tell their children off. There's been this phenomenon of these super nannies these parents hire and bring in to help them raise their kids because they're scared of their kids. So it's not helpful for the parents to just tell their kid all the time, oh, you're perfect, you're great, do whatever you want, eat whatever you want. It's not helpful for them. You need to instruct them, and that's a real expression of respect and affection, actually, to help them understand where they are and how they need to correct themselves, right? So
dishonest. Sorry, can I just?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
The Bhagavatam actually touches on this in the section of Prithu Maharaj, instructions of Prithu Maharaj. And he says that dishonest praise, praising someone for qualities they don't have, is just as damaging as malicious criticism. Because it derails a person's sense of position and where they are. So their progress,
that's a good way of putting it.
yeah, their progress must be systematic and progressive based on where they are. But if they're given a false idea of where they are on this continuum of progress based on someone else's false praise, they're going to sabotage themselves. They will actually sabotage themselves. So, and in that sense, like someone who actually wants to, in that sense, false praise, and false praise can actually be more detrimental than criticism, than malicious criticism. You praise someone, you're setting them up on a false premise from which naturally they're going to fall. I thought I'd just
very
add
nice.
that.
That was really nicely articulated. Yeah, very nicely articulated. Of course, that doesn't mean that we don't encourage, right? There's a difference between, overly, emphasizing and blowing things up to a ridiculous degree. There's a difference between that and encouraging people, in an affectionate, appreciative way. So that's one point. Then, so that's on like the other side of the person who's the recipient of our honor. And then on the subjective side, on our own side, we have to consider in like kind of a pragmatic way, like with whose connection can I make genuine progress, right? And you were speaking on that point, that I think you said like what association will have the most transformative power, right? So we have to consider like who actually has that substance, who actually has grace of a higher level, which can descend and purify me and help me. There's one place where Srila Sridhar Maharaj is speaking quite like frankly on this subject, and he said, I will not go to serve persons on my own level, he says. But this, service must be offered to a higher plane. And then that the great, because what is it that will help us to progress? What is it that will help us to transform and purify? It must be something that comes from a higher sphere. We can be raised up according to the level of the persons whom we are serving, right? The persons whom we are serving, they can only take us up to the level that they are at. So if they are less than us, then we're offering our energy to them, our respect, our faith to them, and they will take us down to their level. And if they're on an equal level to us, we will remain on that same level. But if we are offering that to a higher plane, a higher spirit, they will raise us up to that higher sphere. So it doesn't mean that we won't, we won't be like fanatical and we're not going to help anybody, unless they're superior to where's your certificate, right? And I've encountered that kind of thing, like sometimes when I was serving in Navadvip in our temple in India, there would be persons who, like, they wouldn't do anything unless it came from the top. Like if I asked them, can you help me with, cleaning this room? Or, only if Acharya Maharaj tells me, only if the Guru tells me am I going to do it. That's taking things to an extreme. And it's also kind of missing the point, because we want to see things with a broad perspective, that, this is a person serving in my Guru's temple, my Guru's mat. And I'm indirectly serving my Guru by assisting this Vaishnava. Or it may be only to harmonize with the environment too. We want to, you can think, it's how you adjust it, right? My Guru will be happy if this Vaishnava is happy. So in service to my Guru, I'm serving this Vaishnava. This was something that I really thought about when I was serving in India, because there were a number of persons who were living full time, and you're living in India, and it's like the headquarters, so you'd get some special attention, right? Anyone who was living there for a long extended period, you would get some special attention. And another thing is that it was a little austere, and so people would bring special gifts, and so what I would observe sometimes is it would be kind of like devotees would start to develop their own trade. Like you're like this star living in India, and you've got these fans, and they're bringing you gifts, and it's kind of like you can have your own trade going on, right? And you're also in a position to help people because you know the area, you're connected to resources. So it's kind of like you can have your own little monopoly going on. Very easily it could happen, And so it was something I was conscious of, and I tried to be careful of, like not to get sucked into that, and to try to keep that mindset that this devotee is asking me, they need some soap powder, or they need socks, or whatever, or they need help finding this or that. I had to keep that consciousness. I'm not doing this like for my own popularity, or even necessarily directly for this person, but I'm thinking of it in terms of my service to my guru. I don't want to start my own business, but I'm investing in my guru's business. All my capital's going there. And there's one comment Srila Sridhar Maharaj shared about this, that he spoke of one disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We're going over our 20 minutes, but we have special guests for you. So, one disciple, it was a sannyas disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who'd been serving like 20 years in the mission, and then towards the end of Saraswati, but what happened is he kind of had this, started developing his own group of followers, and he was posted in a particular zone area, and there were many grihastas, householders, they would give donations, support his temple, and so on. And so he kind of started his own little thing, and then and this went on many years, and then Saraswati Thakur, not long before he left the world, he said about this sannyasi, or maybe I think he said it directly to him, that you could not see me. He said, you could not see me. And he said, you have become a broker. He said, you've become a broker. That you have some grihastas serving under you, they're giving you so much. And then you're sometimes giving some of that to me. Like you've become a broker, like a middleman. He said, but you are meant to be my man. You're exclusively my man. So with this in mind, we have to think, where is my service going? In order for the full transformative effect of Vaishnava sadhu sangha to take place, our service must be connected to the highest level. So we have to think in that way, in a realistic way. Another thing this verse brings up is just in general the conception of, the idea of recognizing Vaishnavas of different grades, and remember, this isn't something that is determined by duration of time, right? Someone may have joined a few years ago, someone may be a 20-year-old kid, and they're more advanced than someone who's been in the mission 40 years and they're much older. It's not determined by age or amount of time, but by recognizing what quality do they have. And our Gurudev, so that's another thing to be conscious of, right? We want to be free of that type of prejudice. Our Gurudev mentioned very, very sweet way once. He said, where we see the light of Krishna consciousness, we must pay our dandavat there. We won't be prejudiced by any external considerations. Male, female, black, white, young, old. We won't be prejudiced. But where we see there's some real light of Krishna consciousness, we have to recognize that, honor that, and serve that. And then there are other descriptions also, maybe we won't go into now, but in the Srimad Bhagavatam also there are descriptions, what is the nature of the Prakrita Bhakta, the more Kanishta beginner Vaishnava, generally more focused on the external aspects of things, or mention that they may have a lot of adoration for the deity, but they cannot appreciate the devotees, the Vaishnavas. The characteristics of the Madhyam Adhikar are mentioned, in particular how they relate with the environment and different persons, which is also quite related. Prem, Maitri, Kripa, Upeka. that they have the madhyam, middle class devotee. They have praying, love for the Lord. They have friendship with other Vaishnavas. They have mercy for the ignorance. They try to, and this is also, this actually ties in very nicely with this verse, this discussion. Persons who they see to be junior to themselves, or who are ignorant in some way, but open, receptive, they will try to help them, to support them, support their growth in Krishna consciousness. And upeka, they will be indifferent to those who are inimical, those who are anti. They won't try to force anything on them. They will be aloof from them. So it's a helpful, we won't consider that we are madhyam adhikar Vaishnava. It's a high level, but it's a helpful model for us to follow. And then the uttamadhikar, they're the highest class Vaishnava. They're seeing Krishna is everywhere, and they're not seeing anything wrong in the environment. So this idea in general of being aware of different classes of Vaishnava and engaging with them appropriately, this opens all this discussion up. And then also we can bring in our Gurudev's comment, that we have to remember, and so many times I heard our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj mention this, we don't always know who is a sadhu. We may not be able to recognize, because you can't tell just by the dress necessarily. And coming up in the next verse, we'll discuss how Vaishnavas may have some particular material characteristics which can, throw you off the scent. You'll think that they're not Vaishnava. So it can be a little tricky. So our Gurudev warned too, if you're not sure, practice humility, tolerance, respect, and give respect. From you can keep some distance from them. You can respect them from a distance, but don't go to dishonor. You have to be very careful because you can't be sure. And there are many examples of that, but that will take up too much time. And lastly, just one more point. You were also emphasizing this point. It's interesting, like the main qualifier that's mentioned here of the highest level Vaishnava, nindādi-śūnya-hṛdam, that they don't have any tendency to criticize. That's like enough to think about, actually. They don't have any tendency to criticize, to find the fault in others. That's something to think about. And our Gurudev was very much like that. He could become angry. He could tolerate many faults in the devotees, but he would never tolerate criticism of other Vaishnavas. And I saw and I heard of a number of instances of that. He didn't tolerate that. And it is also the most harmful thing for our spiritual life, that tendency to criticize. Okay. Any final thoughts you want to share?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm fine. I can tell briefly, or maybe just briefly, about a superficial judgment being made to try and assess someone's spiritual advancement, or judging people along superficial parameters and drawing conclusions based on that about their adhikar, about their spiritual substance or lack of. And I remember someone telling me that when he was a younger devotee, he was basically making judgments on the other male devotees based on the length of their sika. And so if someone came into the temple like a new guy with a very long sika, it was considered that, well, a very exalted Vaishnava has arrived. So that's a comical example, of course. But nonetheless, it shows that we're all prone to be making judgments about others, and in this context, other devotees, based on superficial factors, based on relative and what are inherently non-spiritual parameters. And we're using them to try and categorize and box and label those of whom we, as you said, we as Gurudev said, we don't necessarily know who's a devotee or not, what to speak of their level of spiritual progress. So yeah, it's just to reaffirm that it's imperative to keep in mind or to watch ourselves and not cast aspersions or impute or judge and box others according to these very what trivial labels, actually.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a nice point. We have to be wary of that. We will only be able to recognize according to our own level of realization, right? And that's why it's also important that we follow the indication of whom we know to be a superior Vaishnava, right? So if our Gurudev has indicated this is a Vaishnava who's worthy of your honor and attention and service, then we will follow that. Because on our own, according to our own estimation, we could get it totally wrong. Yeah, and you're reminding me of my own like early days, when I first joined, and like some of the silly judgments I would make, like for example, I remember when we were just talking about when I was like, we tend to go through these fanatic phases when we first get into Krishna consciousness, and we were mentioning some of my own embarrassing examples of that. But one thing in the context of this discussion, I remember in my early years at Navadvip, I was like, very young, 21, 22. I would, if I saw devotees were taking a lot of supplements, I thought, they're in Maya, they're in illusion, especially Americans, come with all kinds of. Now I've become one of those Americans. Like anybody look in my room, I've got like 50 different supplements I'm taking. Like I've become one of those. But at the time, it's like I would judge people in these very superficial ways. Even if our Gurudev has indicated someone to be of a particular caliber, but I can't get past certain superficial things. So we always have to keep that caution in the back of our mind. Don't rely on our own judgment too much,
We are touching on the next verse somewhat, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe we better stop here. Yeah. Yeah, good point. Better stop.
Before we know it, we'll be through the whole īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā in this sitting.
Well, thank you so much, Gadadhar. It's been awesome
to
have
you
with us today.
Appreciate it. My pleasure.
Gadadhar is a really wonderful preacher, speaker, Vaishnava. So please look out for any opportunity you have to hear from him. Please stay tuned and continue this īpsita-saṅga-labdhyā challenge. Jai Shri Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.